Brilliant.
Hello.
Oh, good evening. Oh, well, it might not be evening when you listen to this, but hello. And
Um,
I'm here with Kat, and Kat's here with me, Debbie. And our paths have crossed, haven't they, for a few years ago now,
yes,
on
power
social.
of Instagram.
Literally the power of Instagram, and you know that it has been such a godsend to me for a few people that have come into my life, so I'm always grateful, Kat, that you crossed my path, love. And I absolutely love like the direction that you sent me in. I know you're a certified menopause expert. I'm starting to feel I'm one as well, but only
Yes.
by age and what I'm living through. So do you want to, I'll tell everybody about me in a minute. Can you just tell everybody, I know you've got a much bigger background than just certified menopause
Yes.
expert, but that's how our paths crossed.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. So, ladies, my name's Kat Armour, and I'm known as the Hormone Fairy. So I've been specialising in the perimenopause, the menopause for now. How many years is it? About 8 years now. Prior to that, my background is I'm a qualified homeopath. I'm trained in herbal medicine and nutrition. And I started to see more and more women that were struggling with their hormones, hence why I went in to become a certified menopause coach. I've added hypnotherapy, so I do a lot with the mindset and hypnotherapy, weight loss, as well as hormone testing. Yeah, so I work across the UK, do various corporate talks as well.
No, I saw that. I watched you do that. That was absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I'm currently running a menopause course, and so I just really wanted to open people's eyes to the fact that there are so many other things that they can do. So through the course we've been talking about diet and exercise and mindset, and I know one of the things that completely changed things for me was the Dutch test. So that is something I really, really need to chat to you about, Kat, so that we can actually help educate everybody else about it
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely.
But I did get, before we dive into that, because I actually think that's going to be the biggest bit of what we're going to chat about, if I could just ask you a few of the questions that people have actually sent in to me, that would be
Oh,
really, really great. Um, well, I think the biggest question I've been asked as well over, I'm in week 5 of the course for people at the moment, and is this divide about whether they should go on HRT or whether they should battle on through and just get to the other side of it. And I know a few people that even in their 70s are still struggling with symptoms of menopause, which, you know, when you start to weigh that up, it's like, okay, well, I could do this for a couple of years, but actually if it's going to end up being 15, 20 years of my life, then I'm going to need to solve this. So I think it's a really relevant question. It's just like, you know, HRT or battle through. What would you say?
I would say this is a very individual subject because there are so many women who don't want to. They want to battle through. They don't want to take HRT. And I know loads of women, 60s, 70s, 80s, who have never taken HRT, and they have very healthy bones. They don't have osteoporosis. They don't have dementia. They don't have heart issues. So everyone is individual. I do know a lot of my mum's friends that were on HRT, so mid 70s, they started to come off their HRT at around 70. All of the symptoms came back because, of course, they're withdrawing that estrogen. So it's very individual. The biggest thing I would say is I'm finding with the likes of all the media attention, the documentaries, that so many doctors are, pushing the HRT.
Mm.
And I'm finding many women are going on HRT too early when they've got plenty of estrogen and progesterone in their system, and then they're having estrogen dominant symptoms.
Right.
I'm also finding quite a few women that have been on HRT for say 3 months, and maybe it's helped with the hot flushes and a little bit with the aches and pains, but it's not helped at all with their mood, their libido, their motivations. Some just say they feel worse on HRT, particularly the progesterone side can make some women feel a little bit crazy. And doctor's answer is quite often have an antidepressant or up the dosage. And it's there's more to it than that. As you know yourself, HRT can be wonderful for some women. For other women, it's not so great. I mean, the HRT we have now, the patches, the gels, they are much safer than the pills used to be years ago. So they're much safer. The way they bypass the body, bypass the liver, so much safer. And there are benefits, especially for women that are going through early menopause, maybe, you know, late 30s, early 40s, for the first 5 years. Yes, HRT can be so protective for the heart and the bones. But it's so individual, you know, and then doctors don't tell you that when you take any form of medication, it strips your body from nutrients.
Yeah.
So, you know, HRT strips your body from magnesium. Magnesium's needed for your heart muscle. It's needed for your, you know, your muscles, all your muscles, loads of, you know, sleep. Yeah. Vitamin D strips your body of vitamin D. We need D for our mind. We need it for our bones. Calcium again for the bones. So that's why you still see many women that are on HRT that later on go and develop cardiovascular disease or osteoporosis. So if you're taking a medication, it's not the wonder pill. You have to, I mean, it can be amazing, but you have to add in nutrients. You have to go back to basics, probably what you've been talking about for the last 5 weeks.
Go back to
nutrition, mindset. Absolutely. So it's an individual subject, I think, HRT. And then I find a lot when I talk about HRT, some women feel a failure if they're on HRT. They feel that they're a failure because they haven't been able to do it naturally. Or other women, you know, are so against it. So it's individual. I think it can be amazing for some women. And when I see it on my hormone test, I say, look, you've got this option: low estrogen, low progesterone, low testosterone, go and get medication, or add in these foods, add in these herbs, add in these supplements, change your lifestyle, and see if you can do it on your own. So
would your advice be for somebody that chooses the HRT route then to be coming off it at some point? Because I had a really long conversation with somebody recently, and she just hadn't even thought about ever coming off it, and the consequence, like you say, at that point the withdrawal is, oh, now you're in menopause.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Everything that you try and delay at one point in time is just coming further down the road, with possibly problems that you've created along the way, but also possibly some very positive benefits as well. And I'm just like, oh.
I mean, they say, and it depends. If you look at the British Medical Society compared to the 2 menopause societies in the USA, so if you look at them, they all contradict each other. So I do think it's individual. I mean, there are benefits of HRT, absolutely. But many women, when they come off it at 60, then they'll get the hot flushes come back, aches and pains come back. And, you know, are you prepared to deal with that? Are you ready to deal with it at 60?
It's hard because you know there's a medication that sorts it for you. So it's like, oh my goodness, you'd so want that again, wouldn't you?
Yeah. The biggest one actually is talking about the I've had quite a lot of clients recently have the Mirena coil.
Yes.
Now the Mirena coil has the hormone progesterone. And it lasts for 5 years. But many women are being told, just leave the coil there. I've got women that have 8 or 9 years and the coil is still inside them. And you have to think that could potentially, you know, tissue could grow around that implant, making it harder to withdraw. So that's a big thing. I do think women need to make sure they remove it after 5 years.
I think that's really true. Bioidentical versus synthetic for HRT?
I prefer bioidentical.
Okay. And will a GP prescribe that if you ask?
Only some of them. It tends to be more private because of the regulations, that's all.
Okay.
And testosterone, that's the other thing. Testosterone is available on the NHS. Quite often doctors won't prescribe it because the testosterone is a male licensed product. At the moment, we don't have a female licensed testosterone product. They are doing tests for one and they're trying to introduce it. So if you were to go on testosterone, you're taking a small amount of the male version, so a small amount of the gel. It is available on the NHS. Not many doctors are prescribing it. It tends to be more gynecologists. I mean, you might get lucky with a doctor that will prescribe it, but testosterone quite often is a piece of the puzzle that's missing. And
what would be throwing up for a lady that really needed a little boost for testosterone? What would their symptoms?
Well, okay, so testosterone, low testosterone, very much linked with libido. So low libido, although that can be estrogen and cortisol as well.
Okay.
Low muscle mass, so you might find that your muscles are gone a little bit flabby, you're not gaining, the skin might become more wrinkled. Other things is low mood, anxiety, low mood, depression, lack of motivation, lack of mojo, very much testosterone linked.
Right. Okay, that's really interesting, because I think one of the things that I was talking about, like in the hormone section, was how focused we become on estrogen and progesterone, but there's some big upstream hormones, you know, the cortisol, the insulin, etc., that actually they're the real big players here that we need to balance out and sort out. And there's so much good you can do yourself getting those sorted before we get too hung up on estrogen and progesterone, which are really our reproductive hormones, aren't they? They come, it's like they come to the party, they're there for a little while, and then they just snickle off and leave. They don't even really say goodbye. They just like suddenly just disappear on you. and I think like we really need to focus so much more on like the upstream hormones and get those balanced for people. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. I think they need to be balanced first.
right. And that's, you know, the lifestyle stuff. It doesn't matter how much estrogen and progesterone you put in yourself with HRT. If your insulin's all over the place, if your cortisol's all over the place, then it's just
completely
undermining everything. Brilliant. Why can't I shift the excess weight? Oh my goodness. I think everybody on my course is here for weight, and it's just like,
really? Wow, this is a big topic. This is a whole topic on its own, weight gain.
And I know I want to talk about the Dutch test and things, but just to sort of try and help people a little bit.
So you've got, first of all, you've got the hormones, estrogen. So estrogen is your fat storing hormone, and progesterone is your fat burning hormone. So between them, you know, when they're working in our fertile years or early perimenopause, there's a nice balance that they balance each other out, and that's how we can, you know, lose weight. Many women start to see that their body shape changes. I think I've noticed that this year, January. I don't know what happened, but I've always had a nice pear shape, and I started to notice my waistline was just going, waistline on the top of my thighs. So that's one thing. So women tend to find that they go from that nice pear shape to more apple shape as they store that that fat around the tummy, mainly.
Definitely
tummy and hips. So another thing that's, we've got hormones at estrogen, progesterone, they help to control our hunger. So as they decline, we start to get more hunger, we get more cravings. On top of that, we're getting older, so aging, that metabolism starts to drop, so we may need less calories. So that's really important. Some women need to cut their calories by about 200 to 300 per day, or increase exercise. Again, I know you wanted to ask about exercise. That's another topic. Stress, you talked about this, I'm sure, with the ladies. Stress is the biggie. So cortisol, we're all running on stress. We have so many things as women to do, work, looking after family, pets. Plus, so we've got so much cortisol quite often in our system circulating. And if we're not using, so stress is good for us, cortisol is good for us in little amounts. But if we're continuously stressed because we're on our phones, we're not relaxing, or we're doing the wrong type of exercise, or we're eating the wrong foods, we're just upsetting our balance more, putting more cortisol in. If we don't shift that cortisol, where's that going? Getting stored as fat. So that's that. Muscle loss. We talked about low testosterone can cause the muscle loss, and that can increase your fat as well. So muscle helps to burn the calories, helps our metabolism. You've spoken already with your group about insulin resistance. So quite often post-menopause women can become insulin resistant. So again, eating more sugar, drinking more wine, eating more carbs, blood sugar balance, again, that insulin connection. So there's a whole thing. And sleep, lack of sleep. We need to sleep, which isn't easy in post-menopause, but we need sleep. It shuts off that hunger hormone. It shuts off the cortisol ideally, but also sleep helps our metabolism. So that's another reason.
It's our rest and digest, isn't it? It's
It is,
your
absolutely.
balances.
Yeah. And then on top of that, you've got your lack of motivation. Maybe your mojo's gone because your testosterone's down. So you've got no motivation to exercise, or you're doing the wrong type of exercise. And then the mindset stuff, are we too old to lose weight? Or what habits have we been told? We've been conditioned quite often to eat everything on our plate, don't waste food. So it's thinking about that as well, the mindset. Or you think quite often you've got other women that maybe you've gone through a breakup, a divorce, maybe you don't feel attractive, and then you can quite often, or you've been through a trauma, you'll hold on to that weight as a protective mechanism. So whole combination of things. The key, I think, to weight loss, obviously the mindset stuff is huge, but it all goes down to starting with the liver. So get your liver functioning. I know you'll talk about that. Get your liver functioning, back to those main hormones, the upline hormones, to get your liver working, and get the adrenals calmed down, and then feed that digestive system, feed that gut with good bacteria, with all your, sulfur-rich vegetables, cruciferous vegetables, everything that nourishes rather than the crap, the carbs, the refined sugars, the alcohol, the processed foods, the sugars, everything like that.
It's all the things that you love and use so
I
in
know.
your 30s and 40s, and suddenly you're not doing anything different, and then suddenly the effect is so different. I just mind blown with it.
Yeah.
Having sort of lived through it, you just can't actually believe it's like a switch just goes. And
that was one of my first symptoms, Debbie, is weight gain. I was thinking, I was going to the gym and I was thinking, hello, what's going on here? And then, like I said, this January, it was like, oh, hello, this is a new one, a new symptom. My body shape's changing, so I'm having to change everything.
Yeah.
But it's not saying you can't eat, you can't have that glass of wine, or you can't have the chocolate biscuits or the cake or the coffee. Yeah. It's just nourishing your body. I'm always like 80-20. Once you've gone through a good detox, then do a nice 80-20 and be mindful.
It worries me at the moment how many diets are popping up, and they literally are like menopause diets, like do this, do that, do that. They've got names to them. I've just been reading about the Galveston diet, and a lot of people are going keto, and they're eliminating huge amounts of food groups, nutrients, etc. And I can only see this getting increasingly problematic as there's one fad after another. That the one thing that they tend to have in common is they all decrease processed foods. So they're taking out a lot of the toxic, highly processed foods, and that alone is going to positively impact. So I can see why some women would do well on it, but there's no panacea for everybody as far as I can see.
No.
That if you start eliminating massive groups of foods, you're going to run into some problems. We do need nutritional balance, but it is really interesting what you say. I found my appetite's actually decreased, and I've had to be really mindful to do that, because everybody at home sort of will dish up a portion and they'll think mine needs to be the same as it always has been, and I can eat it, but I don't need to eat it. And just remembering that actually it's okay to have a little bit less, and eating when I'm hungry, not eating for the sake of the fact it's breakfast time, lunchtime, dinner time. And the fasting window naturally just by when I'm hungry, and just I'm not hungry at breakfast time, I need to be eating a little bit later in the morning, and I always start with protein. So whether that's eggs or a protein shake or a smoothie or whatever it is, it's just always start with protein. And that's actually worked really well for me, because it's not allowing my blood sugars to get out of balance first thing.
I agree. Protein is key. Protein with every single meal, protein with each snack. The one thing on the intermittent fasting, it can be great for some women. And like in Ayurvedic medicine, it's very much you don't eat unless you're hungry, because your liver or your gallbladder is not ready to process the foods. But the thing I see quite often, when you've got women that have got cortisol issues and maybe waking up with very low cortisol, if they're not eating, they need something, they need energy, so they need protein. So I tend to say for most women, try and eat something for breakfast, or a small amount. Try to eat 3 smaller meals maybe, and healthy snacks, and balance it throughout the day. So
I have some that do really well on little and often, and that just suits. But it is quite an experiment, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Everyone's individual.
Is there any supplement that you think is just pure magic for menopause? Well, the question actually was, is there a magic supplement for menopause? So I know the answer to that is no. There's never going to be just one, because everybody is so individual. But there are some, I think you've mentioned a few already, like the vitamin D and the magnesium, etc. I love ashwagandha for just trying to support the adrenal glands. Anything else that you are particularly hot on, trying to get people onto?
Yeah, I do actually. Ashwagandha is something, when I see cortisol imbalance, when I see women that have got struggling with low cortisol in particular, that need to nourish the adrenal glands, ashwagandha can be amazing, especially for sleep as well. So ashwagandha is good. It depends really. I'm very individual. You've got your basics, which everyone knows, like your magnesium, your vitamin D. Calcium, I prefer to put it in via foods, green foods. I prefer that. What else? The your omegas, your fish oils, or alternatively flax seeds.
All on that.
Flax seeds. Get your flax seeds in.
Yes.
Flax seeds can be useful for hot flushes, so that's one thing.
I've been doing
trying with that.
About this a lot with them. It's the seed rotation, and I know that's something that women tend to do when they're in their cycle, but menopausal women can do it as well. And if you're not having any periods and you don't know where your cycle is, you link with the moon, which is really lovely. I always know when the new moon is and the full moon is, and they're different seeds. So flax is a really big part of that, as is pumpkin, sesame, sunflower, and it's just getting those amazing nutrients and oils into you. I'm absolutely loving those. And I said I'd do a 3-month trial. I'm just coming up to the end of the 2nd month, because I do think it takes quite a while when you're making any of these changes. It's not a matter of just putting 1 dose in and going, it's magic, I was sorted. It is taking quite some time. Is that about right? Do we still sort of work in a cycle sort of way?
And actually your body, quite often women will have period pain even though they don't have periods. And it's just the body, the cells have got used to that memory. So that can be, I love seed cycling.
Honestly, I would rate it, and I'm absolutely loving the recipes and as well.
So I think the other things, many women, B vitamins, your B12 complex, many women are low on that. It's good for the energy. So B12, especially if you're on HRT or the pill, strips your body of B12 too. So that's a useful one. Can help with the anxiety stuff. What else can we say?
I've heard a lot of talk about methylated vitamins. Thoughts on that?
I just think it depends really. I mean, I'm very much about, ideally you want to try and get it from food, but the problem is most of the food that we get in the supermarket nowadays, it's just so depleted because it's been picked and frozen virtually, and traveling miles to get to us. So I think it very much depends. Ideally you want to go, I would say, organic as well. Organic supplements, really important. GMO free, so you know where they're coming from. That's important. Some women like collagen, because collagen, especially post-menopause, it really does deplete. But collagen can be expensive. There are so many brands on the market. If you're a meat eater, just make some bone broth. Get some bones. Make some bone broth soup. I do that all the time. Chicken bone broth. Drink that every day. That's the best way to get collagen in. It also fixes your gut. So it lines your gut, heals the gut. Liver health, so thinking about some herbs or some supplements to support your liver, even milk thistle as a herbal tincture, that's good. Probiotics, prebiotics or probiotics, maybe kefir as well if you want to do that one, that can be useful. What's the other one? And then testosterone, maca, zinc, so they're really good. Maca's great. It's good for maca's good for libido for some women.
Historically.
So maca, is it from Peruvian? Peru.
3 different colours, isn't it? It's the yellow and the black, and it's the red one that we need. Yes,
that's it. So maca's good for building testosterone. You also need your zinc. Weight bearing exercise can help to boost testosterone.
That was the only other question, is what sort of exercise is best through menopause, and I have just been talking about this to them, so they should actually know the answer.
Yeah.
But it changes, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's why so many women, I see it all the time. I always bang on about this. I go to a gym in the morning, and quite a well-known gym, and they do these hard cardio classes for 45 minutes, and I see the women, so they must start at 6:30, and I get there into the change rooms about 7:15, 7:30. They're all exhausted, and it's only 7:15. They're exhausted, they're moaning that they're not losing weight, and then they're going off to do a full day's work, and they're peri or postmenopausal.
And their cortisol just gone through the roof because they've just pounded too hard.
So they've done too much exercise, too much cortisol's released.
And they think they're 10 years younger.
So it's changing it, like you probably said. So weight bearing exercise is really important. So maybe going to a gym, or learning your personal trainer just to get you to teach you how to lift weights, and then you can do it at home with a YouTube video or an app. Just get some small light weights. They don't have to be heavy. So that's good, because it's going to help. Muscle helps to boost your metabolism, so that will help with strengthening your bones as well, but also with weight loss. So that's really important. Then you want to think about even yoga and Pilates can be weight bearing. That's incredible. And also they're very relaxed. They can be relaxing. Sometimes my Pilates classes,
I know, they're a bit killer sometimes.
I know. I've just started Reformer, and that's like a whole new ball game.
I absolutely love that, but it's hard. But it's a different hard. It's not like doing a HIIT class, or you like you say 45-minute hard spin class or something. It's just it's much gentler on your body, and really felt. I still feel the benefit, but it isn't that hard class.
So if you are doing the HIITs or the cardio, like 20 minutes 3 times a week is perfect. You don't have to do those long classes. For the women that are doing swimming or aqua, just think about you not doing weight bearing there. So that's not protecting your bones or your muscles. Great for cardio, swimming or aqua, but you're not getting that muscle because you're not weight bearing in that. So that's it really. So reduce it. Walking is one of the best forms of exercise, really good for your bones. So getting your steps in. If you're sitting at a desk all day, like many of us, especially working from home, it's making sure you set a timer or something, get up, stretch, move, try and fit 10 minutes in short bursts. That can help. And finally, listen to your energy levels, because if you're extremely exhausted, like those ladies in the gym, and then you're going running or you're spinning or you're doing this strange 45-minute high cardio, boxing, running, all the rest of it, you're not helping yourself. So listen to your energy. And think about what time of day is good for you.
They just don't battle through. It's different. Your body's different, and actually, if you're battling through, you're causing many more problems. Brilliant. I'm so excited to dive into this next bit. I know I could keep asking you questions the whole time, but the thing that made such a difference for me, and I bang on about it to absolutely everybody, was when you suggested that I get the Dutch test done. And that I'm going to literally hand over to you just to explain what it is. And then I'll add in my personal opinion of it, if you like. But if you could tell everybody what the Dutch test actually is, Kat, that would be amazing.
So here's an example. Here's one I made earlier. Blue Peter. So this is the Dutch test. It's a test. It was designed in America by Precision Analytics. So the Dutch test, nothing to do with Holland. Excuse me, I've got to turn my phone off. So the Dutch test stands for Dried Urine Test for Comprehensive Hormones. So it's a urine test. Now, the reason that I love it, first of all, blood tests. Quite often women go for blood tests and are told, number one, the GPs don't like doing blood tests now, but also quite often they're told your results are normal, and you absolutely feel like rubbish. So it doesn't always give the answers. And that's because the hormone blood test, quite often doctors don't do it on the right day of the month, or your hormones are fluctuating, or alternatively, it's looking for 2 spikes. It's looking at your follicular stimulating hormone and your luteinizing hormone. And that's not going to show until you're close to menopause. That's when the periods stop. So that's why quite often you can feel like rubbish and it's not helping. But also, as we've said, It's not just estrogen and progesterone, it's cortisol, it's DHEA, it's testosterone, it's androgens, it's your vitamins and minerals. So there's a whole host of reasons why you might be feeling absolutely rubbish. Okay, so this is why I love the Dutch test. They're really simple to do. It literally is a urine test. It's a little bit like, for those that have taken a pregnancy test, it's a bit like doing a pregnancy test. You're literally peeing or dipping this in your urine. So you take 5 samples on the Dutch test. There are different Dutch tests depending on, you know, if women are getting like PMDD or they've been struggling with fertility, then there are different Dutch tests. But Dutch Complete tends to be the best one for like the menopause, perimenopause age women. So ideally, you take around 5 samples. You start at around 5 o'clock in the evening. You finish the next morning. Very simple to do. But what it's looking at, so it's looking at your 3 main sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. But with regards to the estrogen, it's looking at how we need to use that estrogen in our body, and then we need to detox it through the liver, and then out through the digestive system, out through our bowel movements. And quite often women get constipated, you know, later in post-menopause years. So this is why liver health and gut health is absolutely key. That's my number one thing that I say to all women. So we're looking at how you're detoxing that estrogen, because if you're not methylating it and detoxing it, it can circulate in your system, causing more symptoms, brain fog, the estrogen dominance, the swollen breasts, feeling rubbish. The other thing is, you know, if you're someone who has the breast cancers in your family, maybe the ovarian cancers, we can see if it's detoxing and methylating down the wrong pathway, you could be more at risk of those cancers. So we can see what's going on there. And the other thing is it works with HRT. So if you're a woman that's on HRT, you can still take the test, and it could be really useful to see, you know, whether your levels are too high. Quite often see that, like I said, I quite often see women in the early 40s on HRT that shouldn't be on it, or women that are on such high doses that it's causing so many symptoms, or they're not detoxing it. So it can be used, it's designed to work alongside HRT. Looks at your, you know, your adrenal glands. So we see what's going on with cortisol throughout the day. Like I said, you know, for some women, intermittent fasting is a no-no. Exercise in the morning for some women, a no-no. So we look at your pattern of cortisol throughout the day. If there's a cortisol imbalance, quite often that can show that there might be an underlying thyroid issue, which again, thyroid's a common concern with women post menopause. As I said, testosterone, your androgens. So if you're a woman who's had polycystic ovaries in the past, or you've got endometriosis, maybe you've got some facial hair coming, maybe you've got thinning hair on the head, androgens can be really important to see what's going on with that. And then some of your gut markers to see if you've got inflammation in the system, maybe your B6, your B12, which can very much be linked with energy and mood. Dopamine. Dopamine's your pleasure-seeking hormone that goes on to make serotonin. We can see if that's low. Quite often, like women that have got low dopamine, they're reaching for the chocolate or the alcohol or stuff because they want some pleasure in their lives. Melatonin, the sleep hormone, and then oxidative stress. So seeing how your body's, you know, the DNA damage. And another important marker is glutathione. So glutathione is an amino acid that helps to break down the estrogen and detox, as well as other functions in the body. But when we're talking about estrogens, that's what's really important to help detox that estrogen effectively. So that is, it gives a lot of information, as you know, Debbie.
I know. It's honestly, I really struggled with going down the GP route when I was starting to think I was heading towards menopause, and the fact they did a blood test, and like you say, it was the FSH and the luteinizing hormone that they were looking at, and I knew there was all this other stuff, but it's like, where do you get this measured? How do you know what's going on? And honestly, like we said right at the beginning, there isn't one size fits all. Everybody is individual, and it really came down to working out what was going on in my body at a moment in time, and moving from that place. And I actually, just listening to you describe that then, I'm thinking it must have been 2 years ago that I had it done, and I promised myself I would have it done every 2 years and start sort of building a pattern. It's like, what has changed? has everything that I've been putting into my body to keep my cortisol down, is it actually working? And that actually is probably about perfect time for me to do this again as well. I know that is an awful lot of markers, if you like, for us. How do you analyze it, Kat? Yeah, yeah.
Well, you've
We
seen
need
the
you,
report.
don't we? Yeah, we
Yeah,
need you.
yeah. If you were to order it and then get the results, I have some women that order it and don't want the consultation, and then they always come back to me and say, help, I can't understand it, because it's
It's
like
massive, isn't it?
it's
The
huge.
results, yeah,
Yeah.
they're like 30
And
pages.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like 30 pages, but it's also a bit like a science lesson.
Yes. Yes.
So, it can be really difficult, but also then it's all about, so the way I do it is I explain it over a video call for women that are further away from me. So I do it over a video call, explain every page of the results, but also I ask women to complete a real in-depth health form. I want to know about any health concern, any health issues they've had in the past. So whether it's allergies, inflammation, thyroid issues, periods, IVF, I want to know a complete picture of what's going on, because that's my background, and very much about treating the whole person, not just the one section. Looking at diet, looking at lifestyle, looking at symptoms. So I ask for all that information prior to analysing with the client, because then I can say, well, this is the reason why you can't sleep, or this is the reason why you feel depressed or anxious, rather than, lots of women go on HRT and they still feel low, flat, suicidal.
Because it
Whereas
isn't the hormones, it's something else.
yeah, so it can be completely something else. So we can see all that, or maybe it is your thyroid, and maybe it is go to the GP and get a thyroid test, or I can order you a thyroid test. So that's the other things, is it's really important to look at a complete picture. And sadly, most doctors, I don't know, I haven't been to the doctors for ages, but I presume you get 7-8 minutes or something now.
Yeah, 7 minutes. One
yeah,
problem. One
yeah,
problem.
yeah.
If menopause has taught me anything, there's not just one problem.
Yeah.
It's a whole load
Yeah.
of symptoms. Yeah.
So it's looking at a whole picture.
Yeah.
Looking at diet, looking at your lifestyle. For some women, there might be stuff going on with their marriage, or it's not just, or kids leaving home. That's my big thing at the moment. My daughter's pregnant. I haven't told you that. My daughter's pregnant. She's just moved out, and it's that whole empty nest syndrome. And it's So it's all those different things. Maybe your marriage is falling apart. Maybe you've getting made redundant. You're stressed. So it's looking. I do all of that within a consultation, because it's not just hormones. Sometimes it's mind, sometimes it's emotional issues, and sometimes it's diet. You're eating rubbish all the time,
or is it that's the angle I come in at for people, obviously. And then we nearly always get to the point, which so many people are at now, that they're working on their lifestyle, but it's like, what is going on internally? Where am I out of balance? Where can I most importantly direct my attention? And because there is no point, if you don't have a problem with stress and cortisol, then there's no point in treating yourself with those. You might love the sound of ashwagandha every night, but if you don't need it, then don't do it. So I think getting these things assessed, and I love the fact with the Dutch test it's done over a 2-day period, so you go into a whole evening, you go through the night, and then it's monitored like how you wake up. Your hormones fluctuate, they all work on circadian rhythms. We've got a night, day, they turn on, they turn off, but are they doing that? And actually this test does show that. It's just amazing.
So useful.
Because cortisol's coming up the way it should. Is that what's waking you up? Are you absolutely flatlining and dragging yourself out of bed because you've got no get up and go at all? It's linked for me when you get the reading on it and you can see the little dials and everything, and you're like, God, now I understand why I've got that symptom, and there's a route out of it for you. So yeah, I absolutely love it.
Yeah, that's the key. I don't believe, and a bit like you, Debbie, menopause, you shouldn't have to suffer. And if the medication's not working for you, or medication isn't the option for you, you don't want to go that route, then there is so many other things you can do.
Is there a point at which you should give up trying to do it naturally and turn to HRT? Or do you genuinely believe there's a way through? Like, you can keep working for people, and you
From
can.
most women, they can, I've seen most of my women get through it. I mean, I always say to women, if I see low estrogen or progesterone, I always say, you can try HRT, go to your GP. I always direct that route.
Okay.
So, or do it naturally, but I always, first of all, speak to your GP about medication. The only time I think really is when, women are really, for some women, I had one client that was doing it naturally, and then she became suicidal, and it was someone I knew actually. So she actually turned up at my house, suicidal. And I said, I think you should try HRT. And I think the doctor was reluctant because of blood pressure and things in the family history. But actually for her at the beginning, it was a godsend. And it was the right thing for her at the time. And then I think later on she had to come off because of irregular bleeding. So that's something to be mindful as well. Obviously, I'm sure you've talked about it, but post menopause, if you start bleeding, it's so important to get that checked out, because, touch wood, it's nothing, but it could be something, a little bit more sinister. So I think it's really important that post menopause bleeding, you are checked out by doctor or gynecologist or something.
Yeah. So this sadly isn't available on the NHS. Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Can you give people an idea of the cost of it, Kat? Because I think it's the best money I ever spent.
Yes.
I'm sure people will agree. I don't think it's an astronomical cost at all.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
So the test on its own, it's £285. But as I said, most women will not understand what to do with that. And you'll see your results like a science lesson. You'll be thinking, what's it mean? But unless you can link it to your symptoms and know what to do to, bring your body back into balance. So it's £285 on its own, or for me, I charge £425. So that is for the test, plus a 1 hour's consultation, plus you fill in the health form prior to this. And then you almost get sent, like I would say, it's almost like an ebook. Sometimes it's like 20 pages of, right, here's what's going on. This is low estrogen. This is what it's doing to your body. Here's like a whole page of what you can do to boost your estrogen naturally, or go the medicated route. Same with, maybe it's your DHEA and your androgens. So explaining what they are, what they're doing, what the symptoms are, why they're causing you issues. And then again, adding this food, adding this lifestyle change, or so giving you a complete picture. So that's what I charge. It's $425 with the consultation advice.
Yeah.
It's available in UK, but I know for anyone outside the UK, it is available for most people in most countries. It is just the case that there is additional charge for shipping, and then quite often it's returning via someone, like the client would return it to the labs via DHL, somewhere like that. So I think it's DHL, or one of those shipping people.
You actually book a slot, don't you? It's just amazing. So you do your pack arrives, you do your test, and then you book a slot for the next day. And I was just like, well, there's a little man standing on my door just waiting for me to pass this over to him, and results really, really fast.
Yeah, a lot of those, it's not quite the same now. So unless you're doing it through DHL, it now is just post it back via Royal Mail.
Well, I mean, amazing. I'm sure.
So it's so easy. You just go down your local post office, post it back. The results are back 2.5 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And as I said, your results are either emailed to you, or we jump on a Zoom call, a video call like this, explain everything, go through all your symptoms, go through your life history, go through all your problems, and then give you solutions.
Amazing.
Yeah. And as I said, it's good for women on HRT. Or on progesterone, so that can be used ideally, and we do take it, so we take it on a specific day of the month. Ideally, for women that are still having some sort of regular periods, we work out the date. So ideally, if you are still any woman that's still having periods, please track them. Please keep a note of them in your diary or in an app, because your doctor's going to want to know. But if you're doing a test, I'm going to say, when was your last period? And quite often women say, oh, I don't know, they're regular, but how regular? So we want to try and ideally get the test done on a specific day of the month. And I do help women understand what day to take it as well.
And so listening to you now, I'm thinking it's 2 years, I would say, at least, since I had it done. I'm going to pull it out and have a look at the date on it. But would you redo them periodically?
Yeah, again, it very much depends on the individual. So if you're a woman that's not getting any symptoms and you've had the Dutch test, you're happy with that, then fine.
Yeah.
If it does flag something up, so if it's flagging up cortisol issues, maybe it's flagging up that your estrogen isn't detoxing effectively, maybe you're on HRT and the dosage aren't right, then I would say yes, do some work. As I said, liver health, gut health, all the things you talk about as well, adrenal health, changes to diet, all the boring stuff that's so necessary. And then maybe for some women, I'll say do it in 6 months. If I see lots of issues, do it in 6 months. Come back to me if you've got problems. Alternatively, I tend to do mine every sort of 2 years at the moment. That works for me. So as I said, individual.
Yes,
And
brilliant.
some women, they don't need to take it again, just
No, and they just get on track and they're
Yeah.
fine. Get through it. No, I completely
Yeah.
understand that. But is there anything else out there, Kat, that's as good in your opinion as this?
I haven't found anything, being honest. I've looked at a few different companies and I haven't found anything that's as in-depth as this. I do have clients that send me their results from other companies and I don't find them as useful or, as comprehensive as this. And I do find like some doctors will take notice of these results, others won't. It just depends again on the GP, how much time they've got, whether they're actually interested. I've had one woman when she was postmenopausal. She'd gone into menopause in her 30s and no one had ever told her.
Oh.
And they just kept her on, I think they'd kept her on progesterone or the birth control pill. And I said, well, you're postmenopausal. And she went straight to her GP, went on HRT. And she said straight away, she said, it was like my husband said, it's like you're a different person. Your fog has lifted. That's what she said. It's like the fog had lifted for her. But she was like, I think she was about 12 years post-menopause.
Wow. Amazing.
So it's really individual.
Yeah. Amazing. When should I take it? What exactly is it? I'm just checking I've answered everything. Oh, how do I do it? Yeah, just pee on a bit of paper.
Yeah, basically.
What do you do with the results? Can you do it well on HRT? That was an important one. Why is it important? And why don't GPs do it? It doesn't matter.
On the HRT side of things, there are different ways of doing it. It's something I discuss with any women that are on HRT. We can either have like a break and we can do it. So if you're somebody that does the patches, so we can do a changeover and do the test around the changeover. Or we can have a couple of days where you're not on any HRT so that we see the baseline, or alternatively you can take it whilst you're on HRT. So it really is individual, depends. Some women want to do it on HRT, some women want a couple of days break, some women may go a week's break. So it's individual on that with the HRT side of things, but it's so useful.
Amazing. That's it. I could honestly, every time we chat, I could talk to you for absolutely
I'm
hours.
the same with you. So much fountain of knowledge.
This is so useful, and I know it's become a very important topic and just spoken about now. And I am grateful to the celebs that are sort of sticking their neck out a little bit and actually making it a topic that's talked about. It makes me think about my grandma and just say, actually, how did she get through this? Probably without mentioning it to her husband, to her children, I'm sure they talked about it to their female friends. It was just so hush hush.
I don't think they did. Yeah.
I really don't think they did. I mean, my gran wouldn't even tell anybody her age. So I don't think she'd be talking about any sort of health symptoms at all. So it sort of breaks my heart a little bit that they struggle through all these symptoms. So amazing that things are being talked about, but it's made it quite a confusing arena. And I think if people can get the results from what their body's doing and address the lifestyle issues, they'll feel so much more in control just with those two things, and their path forward will be a lot clearer. And that's always been my message. And I think when I discovered the Dutch test, it ticked the boxes for me. It was so far removed from my experience of going for a blood test at the doctor, and where they really didn't know, it was just stabbing in the dark. And yeah, I didn't find that was a helpful route, and it certainly wasn't unique to me. And this has been, and it is a journey. I mean, I sort of
Yeah,
cringe at that word a little bit, but
yeah,
it is a journey, and we've all got to go on it. And like you say, it's very individual, but there's so much help and support out there. And
yeah.
but baseline, what's happening in your body at a point in time is the best starting point for me. So that's why I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
You obviously love it as
I
well.
love it. I do so many of them. But the other thing, just what you were talking about, grandmothers and that, it used to be very much that we would follow our mothers or grandmothers in our perimenopause. So we would go through. I would say that's not so much the case now. And I spoke to my mum about it, and she was saying it was such a taboo. So she's in her 70s, but periods were a dirty word. It was a taboo. She went through with no help whatsoever, thought she was going a bit crazy. And none of her friends were going through it or would talk about it. So it's fantastic. I think it's amazing that we're talking about it all the time. I know some women are burying their heads in the sand still, thinking they're too young when they're not, or it's not happening to them. But it's so important that we talk openly, that we talk to our partners, talk to our colleagues, especially the men, so that I do a lot into companies now, because that's so important. But thinking about our grandmother's generation, did they go through it quite as bad as this generation? No, because they didn't, that's they didn't have the added, they're very much clean diet. They were meat to veg, weren't they?
Yeah.
Not so much of the sugar, the coffee, the alcohol. It was limited. And the stress load, many of them were stay-at-home women. They didn't have the added stress as so much as we have. We're constantly on the go, and we're feeding ourselves quite often. We've all done it, haven't we? Sometimes we do feed ourselves rubbish.
No, I keep saying to the ladies, it's the baggage that you take into menopause with you. Like, that's been built up over decades, and they're your habits, it's the baggage, it's the stress load that's going to dictate to you what your menopause is like. They're much more important than the fat, estrogen and progesterone. They're just dropping off. They're just doing exactly what they should do. They're meant to disappear. You're not meant to be having babies at 70. So they need to get up and leave the party. But if they leave the party and other things aren't right and there's no balance, then leaving the party actually leaves a massive, massive issue. And so I just think, and that's my personal view of HRT, is if you try and plug the gap for estrogen and progesterone missing and never pay any attention to anything else that's wrong, you're not really solving a problem. You're putting a plaster on it. And I just really try and get people to do the lifestyle stuff, even if they're on HRT. That I don't mind at all. That's like amazing. Do it, because the combination is going to serve you well. Try and do it as a sticking plaster. You're going to run into problems much, much quicker.
Yeah, and absolutely the same with antidepressants. Antidepressants can be amazing. Especially if you're suicidal or you're really deep depression, absolutely amazing. But many women are given them when they don't feel depressed. They know it's their hormones, and then maybe they take them and it just feels like they've got a mask on. So antidepressants can be really good, but there's so many things you can do. Or alongside. There's always options. Just don't be miserable and don't suffer. That's the biggest thing.
Brilliant. Kat, I'm going to put, when I post this, I'm going to put your details underneath it so that everybody can message you. Guys, if you're listening to this and you message Kat to get to do the Dutch test, just mention that you've come from the course, and then she'll know that you've heard all this information. You've got a really good idea of what's coming next. But I'm going to be calling you again. I need test 2. But that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Kat.
My absolute pleasure.
Right,
thank you. All right. I'll speak to you soon.
All right, my love.